Hello, everybody. Welcome to my water cooler talk. My name's Eric Hodges. I am a political science professor. I also coordinate the Homeland Security program minor. So my technique that I'm going to be discussing today is called thoughts, questions, and epiphanies. So let's go ahead and get into that. What's the activity? Thoughts, questions, and epiphanies I just mentioned. What's the purpose of the activity? To facilitate good classroom discussions, right? Creating an environment for discussions and improving student engagement both with the material and with each other and with the professor. I've only used this in an in-person class. You could use it online. The challenge or the thing that you need if you're going to do it online is that you need to do it in a synchronous environment, right? Because you're going to have students working together and they sort of, they interact with one another as they're doing this. So it's hard to do in an asynchronous class. What evidence do I have of effectiveness? I just have student feedback. I just pulled a few student comments. Almost the entire class was discussions, so questions and conceptual discussions were hugely encouraged. We always had discussions in class. He challenged students to think more critically. And then this last one is my favorite. Class discussion helps civil discourse, right? Which we obviously need in our society these days. Okay, so let's do a quick step-by-step walkthrough of the way that the activity works, right? So back up. The first step is assigning a reading. Now you could do this, you could do it before class, right? You have the students read something before they come to class, or you could do it in class, right? If you wanted to assign a short reading in class, then you could have them read that and then you could launch into this activity. So step one, it has to be a reading. A caveat with that, this technique tends to work better with primary sources rather than textbooks. As you know, with a textbook, oftentimes in a textbook, they've already done a lot of analytical work. Whereas with a primary source, especially a rich source like, Plato's Allegory of the Cave, for example, in the Republic, it's open to a lot of interpretations. There's a lot going on underneath the surface, a lot that needs to be paid attention to. And textbooks, do a lot of that work already. So it works better if you're working with the primary source. The next step is to break students into small groups of 4 to 5 students, and you're going to want to either assign somebody in that group to record their answers or to get them to come up with somebody. There is a variation of this where, if you're short on time, you just want to, kind of get the ball rolling rather than going through that. You can just do it as a whole class, right? You don't have to break them into small groups. The benefits that I see, there are several benefits I think to having them in small groups. One is it's going to give the students more confidence when it comes time to actually express their opinions. You're going to hear the opinions of students that you may not hear from if you just open it up to the entire class. So if you're going to do it, let's say you're going to not break them into groups. So basically what you would do is you would write, and you're going to do this anyway, you write 3 things on the board. You write thoughts, questions, epiphanies on the board. And if you're doing it as the whole class, you would just open it up. What were some of the major thoughts that you had while you were reading this text? What lingering questions do you have after reading this text? Did you have any epiphanies, right? Did the light bulb go off? You saw something in a certain context that you hadn't thought of it before, right? But if you break them into small groups rather than opening it up to the entire class, it gives them confidence. It allows the people who are not always confident speaking up in class to speak up, right? And it allows them to, if they had a half-baked thought, right, that wasn't fully thought through, then interacting with the other students can help them maybe develop that thought more. Okay, so once they're in the groups, if you decide to go that route, you ask the groups to brainstorm their answers, right? So they're going to come up with the answers to thoughts, questions, and epiphanies. And then you're going to have the student, whoever's doing the recording, come to the board, and you've got the thoughts, question, epiphanies written on the board, and they would just write their top 2 responses in each category underneath that particular heading that you have. And, if you have 5 groups, you're going to have 10 bullet points. There probably will be some overlap, but you'll have 8 or 10 bullet points under each heading, right? And that gives you great material to have an incredible classroom discussion. You don't have to have them write it on the board. You could just ask them, and then you could write it up. It's a little bit easier on you if they come up and do the writing as opposed to you doing the writing, but either way, it's fine. So what do I see as the major benefits of the technique? As I've listed some of these already. It increases the student's confidence, right? They've already sort of, rather than speaking up in the middle, just in front of the entire class to the instructor, they've talked to each other first. They've had a chance to sort of balance their arguments and make sure that their points are solid. I think this one's really important. It allows you to meet the students where they are with their understanding of the text, right? Oftentimes, as instructors, when we're preparing a lecture or something like that, we're preparing it based on our understanding of the material, right? And sometimes that can just, go right over their heads. Now, that's not to say that you aren't going to still bring up those points that you're going to bring up from your own perspective, because this technique is not going to take the entire class to do. So there's going to be time at the end for you to sort of fill in the gaps of things that they might have missed. It encourages close reading of the text, especially if you're going to do this on a regular basis. The students will start reading with these schemas in mind, right, of thoughts, questions, and epiphanies. Will encourage them to read more closely. And then finally, it could lead to a novel insight, right, especially if you're dealing with a really deep text like the Republic, for example. There's a lot of things there. There's a lot going on, and there may be something that you've just never picked up on that a student could catch. So anyway, that's the technique. If you guys have any questions about it, I'd be happy to chat about it more.